Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the West Africa Spotlight series, where we highlight the change makers and African voices making exceptional impacts in the Rust ecosystem. I'm your host, Daniela, and today with us is a special guest, Seun Lanlege, co-founder Hyperbridge. It's an honor to have you with us today. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
making
hello
the
everyone.
time. Yeah,
Thank you for having me as well.
thank you. So, Seun has contributed to blockchain protocols like Ethereum, Polkadot, and he continues to push boundaries with Rust-powered infrastructure at scale. He calls himself a Web3 philosopher, right? And we're going to be getting into all of that today. Rust, Web3, and what it means to build for the future from Africa. So, Sean, once again, it's great to have you here. First question. First question. How was your first encounter with Rust like? How was it like to go from beginner to pro? Could you please tell us a bit about that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in like building high performance applications, and I think I got started learning programming through C++.
Okay.
But at the time, the C++, I mean, continues to still be an issue to this day, is that the C++ build system, Clang, and the build tooling, and also how you import libraries was a bit weird, and that ultimately just discouraged me from continuing C++. And of course, there were more jobs in the now booming web economy, and this was way back in like 2014 thereabouts, right? Um, yeah, so I just started making money doing gigs with like JavaScript and like PHP, and I just stopped thinking about high performance applications, right? Also, I didn't really have any high performance applications that I wanted to build, um, until I, of course, now discovered blockchains, and you know, blockchains do need high performance programming. And that's kind of also how I also picked up Rust as well. I actually picked up Rust to do blockchain research and development.
Yes. Great. So,
Um, yeah, I hope that
mhm.
answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So, what's one common misconception about Rust you often hear, and how do you address it?
I don't know if I mean, I'm not really super in the Rust ecosystem or community these days, but I remember a lot of people had problems with the ownership and borrowing thing.
Mm,
I'm I myself, after writing Rust for like 7 years now, that's not actually what trips me up, on the daily with
okay.
Rust. It's like it's really dependency, like creates that dependency, like mismatch, version mismatch stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any misconceptions about Rust these days. I think Rust
Okay.
also runs very portably, right? It's no longer the days when people were
Mm,
promising it would be available to run on the web and on mobile and all these
mm,
different places. Right
mm,
now, I think there's web frameworks, there's lots of tooling for writing Rust as like WebAssembly on the web. Rust is also very portable. So I think the Rust programming language has really become the modern day Java, right? So
yeah, I
I
agree.
don't think there's anything bad to say about Rust, is my point.
Well, a lot of people would say, okay, for example, it's hard to learn, stuff like that. Um,
I mean, if it's your first programming language, I can see how they will be hard to learn. But if it's maybe your second or third, I mean, of course, there's the whole memory management aspect of it, which maybe a
mm,
lot of languages don't expose you to. But lower level languages, they typically expose you to memory management, right? Like C at least
mm,
exposes you to memory management.
okay, thank you. So imagine you're mentoring a young African dev, right? That is just discovering Rust. What's one non-technical lesson you'd want them to learn?
I think just knowing how to like research is a really good trait, especially when you want to do things that are not typically done, right? So, it's the case that like when you're writing Rust programs, it's not like your React or it's not like your like, I don't know, backend Node.js thing. You can't find examples for everything that you're looking for. So you have to like do a little bit of research and, basically putting the pieces together on your own.
Yeah,
So yeah, knowing how to research, knowing how to find the answers to your problems, and also knowing how to read code as well, reading other people's code, which I guess is a technical advice. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, just learn how to research and be
Hmm.
very well knowledgeable in the problem you're trying to solve is always the best way to solve any problem.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really good advice. So, moving on to Hyperbridge, right? So, Hyperbridge is one of the most exciting projects in the Web3 space now. Why did you choose Rust for Hyperbridge? What made it the best choice?
I mean, technically, we didn't choose Rust.
Okay.
The framework that we use actually chose
Hmm.
Rust. So we use the Polytope SDK framework, which is primarily written as a Rust SDK for building blockchains, right? And it's very, very powerful. Um,
Hmm.
I'm referring to the SDK now,
Yeah.
and it's also very expressive in the customizations you can make. Um, and this is what allows us to build something like Hyperbridge, which is a custom blockchain that has very custom runtime logic and is also, does a lot of cryptography. So Hyperbridge potentially makes use of like very advanced cryptography libraries, which you can only really find safe implementations of in Rust. Maybe a few of them in C or C++, but now the Rust ecosystem has like very rich implementations of various kinds of cryptography. So a lot of these things combined together just made it the best platform to build Hyperbridge.
Wow. That's awesome. You describe yourself as a Web3 philosopher. What does that mean, and how does that influence the systems you build?
So, I mean, for me, I started calling myself the Web3 philosopher. This was in early 2021. I was actually making fun of people who were Web3 philosophers actually
Yeah.
on Twitter.
Okay.
And, these people, all they do really is philosophize, right? They speculate on where the technology will go. Now, remind you, 2021, it was not that far off, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think Ethereum hadn't executed the merge yet, and Polkadot also was just launching. So we were still in the early days of crypto, and yeah, people would just like write all kinds of things. And this is kind of where we got the NFT hype mania from,
Hmm.
all of the speculation that like NFT applications could find. Personally, I was very, very disgusted with a lot of them because they weren't actually building anything. So, as a person who was actually building stuff, it was like, yeah, I'm a philosopher too. We could all write like these ridiculous
Yeah.
posts and speculate on Twitter. Like anyone could do this, actually.
Hmm. Okay. Do you believe that decentralization is more of a technical solution or a philosophical principle?
Interesting. No, I think decentralization has to be material. It has to be something that is real and not just a philosophy, unfortunately. So, networks like Bitcoin are actually decentralized, in that
Hmm.
they are fully permissionless. Anyone can spin up a miner. Of course, to what extent you can contribute to the network is arguable, but at the same time, permissionless systems are decentralized systems. So, and just by being virtue of decentralized, Bitcoin is one of the most valued networks in all of crypto, right? So decentralization also has value because people believe that, yeah, no one can actually sort of control the network, and their assets and their programs are safe on that network. So same thing I think also goes for Ethereum. So decentralization must unfortunately be a technical implementation. It must be something that the network embodies. Otherwise, like, people won't trust the network.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. What excites you the most about building in Rust?
I think for me, it's like the safety of the language is very, very beautiful, because we can actually start to build really complex systems that and not have to have like anxiety or worry, right? Like, I remember if you're building JavaScript programs, like, because of the fact that the language itself is untyped, you know, there's
Hmm.
uh, there's breach in contracts of the interfaces of all the different systems. Sometimes some things can return you undefined, and then you get that famous like undefined is not a function, or undefined is not a
Yeah.
method, or whatever. So you don't get those in Rust, right? You don't get these
Mm-hmm.
runtime errors relating to typing. And it's very interesting because also the type system encodes like memory. It encodes the memory profile of different things, especially if you're in a concurrent system like Tesseract. So we have this implementation. In Rust, it's basically a code that is able to transmit cross-chain messages. It's run entirely off-chain. And it's a highly concurrent application because we allow for relaying across, an unbounded number of networks. So technically, you could have an unbounded number of tasks that do message passing between each other. But like, because the memory profile of different things is encoded into the type system, then you can actually save a lot of headache by having things like mutexes, by having things like, arc references, um,
Yeah.
and yeah, you have these like contracts as to how these APIs and how these different subsystems should behave. And so that's very exciting. Honestly, you couldn't do this before, which means that any program that we write we're sure is safe, and we've never had any like runtime issues in production. And it of course contributes like the scalability and the stability of our programs.
Yeah. Definitely. Rust is very exciting. So apart from building, apart from coding, how do you stay grounded? What inspires you, really?
I mean, I play tennis, on the weekends with my friends. It's always a great pastime. You know, I'm unfortunately mostly working when I'm not playing tennis. I mean, I enjoy the work that we do at Polytope Labs. I think it's very
Okay.
important for the future of
Hmm.
blockchains, and for the future, especially of the continent, as the continent starts to rely more and more on blockchain technology.
Yes, very true. Very true. You call yourself a mad scientist. So, what's the most mad science idea you've worked on or are still dreaming about?
I mean, we definitely have some ideas for the future once Hyperbridge is in a more stable position. But of course, Hyperbridge itself
Hmm.
is, very far out there idea. Not a lot of people are
Yes.
thinking about the solution to interop in the way that we were thinking about it. And yeah, the whole of Hyperbridge is just mad science after the other. A blockchain that basically is able to validate other blockchains and is able to then allow for secure message passing between applications that live on these different blockchains is pretty wild. The best
Yeah.
interrupt solutions today still use, trusted entities which act as an oracle for cross-chain messages.
Yeah. So, what's your projection for Rust in Web3 for the next, like, say, 10 years?
I mean, I personally think that all smart contracts will be written in Rust. We are already seeing things like Vitalik proposing transitioning the EVM to a RISC-V VM, which will essentially be written in Rust. Um, there's Polkadot as well, adding now Rust-based smart contracts. Solana is, of course, taking off with its purely Rust-based smart contract
Yes.
environment. Um, I
Yeah.
mean, we always said that this would happen, honestly. So it's no surprise there at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think Rust is also going to
At all.
find its way into like other like components of the crypto ecosystem, not just smart contracts. Maybe we start to see client libraries for crypto tooling written in Rust, and you can compile them to WASM and you can run them in the browser, um, or other kinds of like server infrastructure that's entirely written in Rust. So yeah, I think Rust is going to continue to dominate the Web3 in like infrastructure space. Also in terms of blockchain implementations, most blockchain implementations are actually written in Rust as well. So like off the top of my head is
Yes. Yeah.
Aptos, Sui,
Mm.
Polkadot, of
Mm.
course. Even Ethereum has a few Rust implementations. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice as regards your journey with Rust, what would it be?
I would have definitely started learning Rust way earlier. I think I
Wow.
picked up
I
Rust
like that.
around 2017. And like, mind you,
Hmm.
we didn't have anything. Rust was still not even stable yet, right? It was
Hmm.
still in beta. Um, I think stable releases came very, very recently.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was no like async awaits, there was no a lot of stuff, but at the same time,
Hmm.
the ecosystem was growing and lots of stuff was starting to get built on it. There were a lot of opportunities back then, and yeah, I definitely would have gotten started way earlier if I had anything to tell myself.
No, I love that. Really. Okay. So wrapping up now, we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up. What do you think is the biggest barrier for African devs?
Hmm. I honestly can't, I honestly can't speak on this because personally, I don't see any barriers to any of these things.
Okay.
Of course, to do anything
Hmm.
and to be good at it, you have to dedicate yourself to it and you have to give it time and you have to be like patient also with your own progress. Um, but if I
Yeah.
think you're able to do these things, then you can do anything really, right? I remember I got started working at Parity 1 year after I started learning Rust. And yeah, that year I had just been making open source contributions to like blockchains and blockchain related code. And like through all of that, the Parity team just said, yeah, we would hire you based off of your open source contribution. So like I said, it's dedicating yourself to it and really, really seeing it through. And yeah, it just pays off eventually, right? And the thing I feel like I see a lot of people do is that they pick up something and they drop it, they pick it up again, they drop it, they pick it up again, they drop it. Um,
Hmm.
you have to take risks, you know. If you don't take risks, then things don't change. So definitely take a risk on yourself and be confident and have less anxiety about the future and just be confident that if you see it through, then things will pay off.
Thank you so much for all you've
Yep.
said. Do you have, do you have any final words for Rustaceans and builders across Africa?
Yeah, I think my final words would be that there's like lots of opportunities in blockchains for Rust. You know, even at Polytope Labs, we're also hiring for Rust developers who can build out protocols and can build out a lot of the Rust infrastructure that we're working on. So, if you're still still playing with the idea of learning Rust today, so are there opportunities? I would say there's tons of opportunities and it will be that way for a while. So don't be afraid to dive in And I think especially for people who are already like senior engineers in maybe some web framework or like Java or like any compiled language, adding Rust to your existing tool stack is only going to be a plus because Rust is also very interoperable with a lot of existing languages, like even JavaScript, right? So yeah, those would be
Yes.
my final words.
Wow. Okay. This has been an incredible session. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your insights. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
To
you for
everyone
having me.
listening, yeah, everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. We hope you're able to walk away with as much inspiration as we are. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep pushing boundaries with us. Bye.